Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Monday. It's May 11th, and a couple of things before we get started here. I, I'm for any of you new, you may not know, but I had a little accident and had a detached retina back a little over a year ago, and I had my surgery to reattach my retina, and that went well and healed well. But one of the side effects from that is that it gives you a cataract. And my cataract has gotten really bad. They've been trying to correct it with contact lenses since the accident happened, but about every 3 months, I have to go up another power or down a power. I think it's actually negative. I can't remember. But I've gotten to the point they can't correct it anymore, so I'm gonna have to have my surgery. So I'm scheduled to go in for, I don't know if they're actually going to do the surgery or if they're just going to do all the measurements and the consultation and whatever, but I'm supposed to do that next Monday, and I cannot wear my contact in that eye starting today until after my appointment. And so I'm having a little bit of trouble seeing. I'm basically blind in that eye without that contact. Even with that contact, my vision is probably less than 50% in that eye now because they just cannot correct it anymore. It's just getting more and more cloudy. It's like looking through frosted glass basically. Any of you that's ever had a cataract, you probably know what I'm talking about. If you hadn't, then hope you never have one. But it's relatively minor procedure to correct it now. They basically take your lens out and put a new one in. And I know some other people have had them done. They said it's like a miracle, and suddenly you can see perfect again. You don't need contacts or glasses or anything like that. So anyway, I'm only seeing with one eye, so I'm really struggling. I'm much slower. It's you're probably not going to see this video till 9 o'clock tonight because of that. I've just had a lot of stuff going on. I've been trying to get this done and being able to half see and all. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of make you aware of that. So I'm a little slower on email. I'm a little slower getting everything done basically because I can't see well. So I'm really struggling to see. So if you send me a chart that's hard to see, I may send it back to you and tell you I can't see it and you have to send me another one. So, but anyway, enough about that. The other thing was, hopefully you've seen the new website by now. If you hadn't, go check it out. Let me know what you think about it. It was just the old one was getting a little stale. It's time to update. It's been a few years, so I'm wanting to do some additional things. You'll see a link on there for video lessons, and it'll tell you right now it's just coming soon because I haven't had a chance to get that part of it finished, but I will work on that at some point. Hopefully here in the next few days I'll get that up and going, so that'd be a nice basically what it'll do is it'll categorize and give you links to all the video lessons, and so when you get ready to do when you're reading the manual and studying and you want to go look at the video lessons, it'll be easier to find them basically. There'll be links that take you straight to them. So I hope that's going to be helpful to people, but I haven't got there yet on that, but I'm working on it. So hopefully another week or two we'll have that going as well. So I think that was it as far as letting you know that stuff. And next Monday I'll probably, I think my appointment's not till the afternoon, so I'll probably trade that morning. But there may not be a chart lesson, but we'll talk about that as we get closer to it. Let's move on with our chart lesson for tonight. Okay, this trader sent me his chart here, and he was asking about if this was a good trade. It's really not even a second entry because here's your new low. So you got a first entry and then a second entry and then a third entry. So that's like a fourth entry. By the time you get to your third and fourth entries, you got a trend working up. So you got to be real careful going short. So he asked me if this was a good short based on his read here. Well, this is actually not a bad short, but if you look at this read, it's not a very good short because it's like I said, it's one, two, three, it's a fourth entry. Look at all the bars stacking up. We're not really trending here. We're just going, anytime you start to see three or more bars in a row like that stacked up, notice how these bars are all trending down. And then notice how these are just going sideways, really all across here. This is a trading range. So based on his read, this is not a very good entry right here. However, here is how I would see it. And you can see the trading range right there. And that's a little failed break higher. And it gives you a nice bearish bar with plenty of room to get back in there. So I would be okay taking that trade right there on a failed breakout. So, but that's the way you really should have looked at it. This is just a trading range. And if you didn't have these other lows, there's really a little midline in there too, and these were bouncing off the little midline. So, but this is how you want to enter a range on a breakout. You need to get a bearish bar real close on the outside or real close with a chance to get out before you get back to the other side. Notice you got another breakout here that you could, which is exactly a second entry. Notice that high first entry, second entry, but that signal bar is too bearish. That bar closes almost on its low, so you can't use, even though it turned out to be a good trade, you can't use it. There's a little bounce here. I don't think there's enough room right there to get out. If there is, it might be because he's really backed out. That looks like a single tick on top of that, so there may be plenty of room there. If there is, you could go long right there too on that higher low when you got back inside, since you couldn't enter right here. So that's how you would play that. So I hope that's clear, but just remember that when you start to see 3 or more bars stacking up, especially if they're neutral bars. Now a lot of times people will think that's a doji or that's a doji. But a doji, or that's a doji, that's a really bullish bar. A doji is where it closes. Neutral bar is really probably the name we should use instead of a doji. But when you close in the middle, that's when you can tell there's no trend to that bar. It's just like a 1 bar trading range. So that's neutral. That one's neutral. These are fairly bullish right here. I'd call that neutral. But when you get 3 or more with one of them a neutral bar in there, you're in a trading range, so just be careful entering into that stuff. Just wait and get a little failed breakout, or let prices start trending again, whatever. But that's how I would have played that one. And another trader asked me about legs, and I get this from time to time. And this was a chart I drew up for him just to help him see it. But notice this red move is all this leg right here. And notice within there, there's 2 swings in there. So there's 2 legs within that 1 leg. But you measure that 1 leg, and then you got 2 legs of correction with 1 more little push down, and then you get a measured move. And that's equal to that leg. So notice that there's 2 legs up. The market moves in 2, so this is important. But this is really more just for targets and to know where the prices are going. We don't really use this to trade. We narrow down into our trends and our setups to enter. But you need to know this stuff because it'll help you to know where the prices are going. So if you got this leg up and then suddenly you start going higher again, measure that leg and look for a measured leg up. And as you get into your shorter term ones, like these 2, they get even more accurate than the bigger ones. So you got a measured leg up there, a correction one, and then notice where it went. Perfect measured move. It's exactly like that one. That's a perfect measured move. And then you got 2 legs down. You just happen to get another little push down here. They probably trapped some longs out, people trying to get long there, and then they ran it straight up, and you got to measure that. The 2 reds are the equal ones there. The 2 blues are equal here. The 2 blues there. And then you got another correction here. Notice there's a leg down and then another leg down, and they're basically 2 measured legs. This one's actually a little bigger here. And then you got a bigger blue leg, which probably from there we may get another one. But notice that within there's 2 lighter blue ones. So you got that leg and then another measured. It's not quite a measured leg. This one a little further, but so make sure you understand what these legs are. And these little swings in here are just smaller legs. So keep that in mind. Okay, and this trader sent me this. He was just trying to figure out second entries. And he got this first one right. You're coming down, you get a first entry, and then you're coming back, and you get a second entry long right there. But this was kind of unique, so I thought I would show it. This one, your first entry, This is really your signal bar because it made the low of the swing. So your safety stop has to go below that bar, assuming you entered here. We're not calling these a good trades or anything. This is just hypothetical if you were going to enter. But your second entry occurred on the break above that bar right there. So, or your first entry rather. And then you correct back, but you don't make a new high. So the count's 1, and you pull back, and when it broke high right there, your count is 2. And notice that high is lower than that one, so the count's still going. So that counts 3. And then, oops, suddenly we made a higher high than that one. So now the count's over. That's a first entry, and then there's a little second entry right there. It didn't break lower, but it still makes a correction. It doesn't make as high a high. And so there's you another second entry long, and look at it go. So, but coming back here, your signal bar is this bar because it makes the low of the swing. So your safety stop has to go down here. Notice if you'd have used that when it broke higher, I don't know if it came back or not, but notice how it came down here. So if you'd have put your stop there, you might have gotten stopped out. I don't know which way it went first. I don't know if he drew this or if this is an actual chart or what. This is just what he sent me. And so your second entry triggered here, but your stop has to go down here. That's kind of a unique, usually that you won't see. I mean, you'll see some inside bars occasionally that trigger a second entry, but the same thing happens right over here. Notice he's coming back and his second entry triggers here. So his safety stop has to go 1 tick below that bar. And then you get a third entry, and you're just going sideways here. So I don't know if I'd have taken this second entry because by that time you're just going sideways. And once you start going that flat, forget about second entries because you'll just get chopped to pieces. So, okay, here's another chart a trader sent me, and notice you've got an uptrend working up here. You made a new high, you pull back, and when it broke higher right there, that's your first entry. Then it's working lower again, and when it broke above this bar right here, that's your second entry long. But look how bearish that bar is. And I don't know if there's enough ticks in there to get out, but that's why we use that for a filter, because if you had taken that trade, you'd probably had a loser. But if you just, because the signal bar is no good, you say it doesn't meet our entry criteria, you don't get stuck in that trade and maybe take a loser right there. Excuse me, I bumped my thing. It might have been loud on y'all's end. If it was, I apologize. But it is a second entry. It is with the trend. But your signal bar, that's a bearish bar right there, so you can't use that. Okay, we're going to go through the trades real quickly. There's not a lot of them today, kind of a slow day. We had a really strong spike in channel, a little two-tiered channel, and 7 o'clock came right in here on this little correction right here, and we kind of got a close outside, convincing a new low, and then things reversed. And we headed up. That's another thing I wanted to tell you. I wanted to show you the difference in the charts. I actually changed my data series to ETH instead of ETH2, and that changes the close time here is basically what it does. Instead of showing the old 3:15 close time from the previous day, it shows I think the 4 o'clock. I think is what it shows. But you can see it showed 29.30. But if I go over to the ETH2, I get the 29.28 and that's where we seem to have gotten the actual resistance and the support. So I don't know if I'm gonna like this ETH2 or ETH or not. I think the channel was the price action was a little bit clearer. So again, here's the ETH. So that's what I ended up using today. That's what I try. I mean, as far as trading it, it's not much difference, but it did affect. Notice that this did come into play as well, but we really pushed on through it and didn't get much resistance, support or resistance. We got a little bit, maybe right across there, but it just seemed like that one played better. But I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to trade it for a few days. We'll see. You know, one day you can't tell if that's going to make that big a difference. But that's usually a target that I look for when prices start heading that way, when they're below it, or if the market opens above it, it'll usually pull down to that. It's usually an important price level, so we'll watch it. But I traded this one today. I didn't have any problems trading it. I mean, the price action doesn't really change it. I actually had a little different look right here. Several of you asked me about this trade, and we'll talk about it. I'll wait till we get to it. I'm going to go ahead and just get through the trades and try to get this thing reasonable amount of time tonight. We were trending down strongly, and you get a little second entry short right here, right off the midline. It turns out to be a little resistance there, but you don't get that till over here. But there's a second entry short there. It is off the midline, so it's not as reliable. But this is a fairly strong downtrend. You may take that one. But notice we shoot down, then we get a first entry. Then we get a second entry when it triggers below there. But this is really your signal bar at that point. But when it tries to go higher, it actually breaks higher right there. Let me try to make this a little bigger. It actually tries to break. It actually ticks higher and then turns back down. So when it breaks lower right there, you got a second entry short, and that is your signal bar. That's a good setup. And you actually get a lower high. It tries to go higher again and then turns down. In both instances, you still got enough room to get out. So that's a pretty good trade. Either one of those were good setups, and that got you off to a pretty good start early. And then we bounce. And this is what a reversal looks like. Notice this. You got your break and a new low, and you run up and you run straight through. Notice how there's no resistance there at the EMA. You run straight through, you pull back, you get a first entry short, and then you run higher and you get a second entry short, and it doesn't fail until it breaks higher right there. And you also get a little bit of support across there. So that's a failed second entry. That's a true reversal pattern. I'd like for that to be on this side of the EMA, but I still like that trade. I meant to mark it at least green. But that's a true reversal pattern. If it would have set up on this side, I'd have said I really like that one. But you can see how flat you are there. When you're swinging back and forth and you're that flat, you just about have to trade into that, or you're not going to get a setup. So it's just the way it's just the way it works, unfortunately. So, but anytime you go long or short right into it, sometimes it's always suspect. As you get more experience and do this more, you'll start to get a better feel for when you probably can do it and when you shouldn't, because there's no cut and dry rule that says, okay, it's all right to do it here and it's not all right to do it there. So I struggle with it, but that's just the way it goes. So, but anyway, there's an entry right there, and you can't enter it. It's tempting to go short, but you don't have enough room, I don't think, there. If you had enough room on your turn back down here, I would be okay going short there, because notice pull back, first entry, second entry. There's a second entry long there. But of course, when you're into this, forget about your second entries, because you'll just get chopped up. And you can see your second entry triggered, and then you wouldn't have got stopped out on that one, but you could have. And then it turns back up. So the only trade I see is a possible short right there. If you got enough room, if you had a little different bar. And that is a lower high. It is a failed second entry long. So we run up, and now you got your two measured legs up here. And what is that? Why do we care about that? What does that mean? You can see we got a little more than two measured legs. We actually got to that. We actually basically got a measured leg. Then we got the break and a move to a new high. And then what happens? Prices turn back down, and you get two legs down right there. Why do we care about that? Because that tells us where we're probably going, and then we're probably going to get some kind of correction. We don't know. Prices might even reverse there. This turn might have been the middle of a pattern, and we might have had another big leg down, like this big leg over here in the overnight. But that's not what happened. We just got two little small legs, and then the trend starts going higher again. So we run up here. Really, you don't really get a close outside till here, and you pull back. But this could have been. There's another way to look at this. This looks like a little spiking channel. So you probably wanted to do this too, because this does seem to hold the prices a little better. And you can see that. But when I first started it, I just kind of drew it off the first swings. But that's a little spiking channel. And you close outside your new high, and then you got 2 legs down. That's perfect price action, exactly like we teach it, exactly like you expect. And there is a lower high here. I didn't mark it. Well, I marked it green. It's a little aggressive because notice how you're stacking up there. So you could treat it like a little failed break high or two, but it's an inside bar. It does have matching highs, so you can use it. But everything looks like we're reversing. It's right into the EMA, so it's just a little dangerous. I'm not crazy about it. I marked it. You might want to take that trade. And this is where we just kind of start going sideways. And you got another one running up here, and you get your first test of that, and then you get a double test. This is a good setup right here. You actually open here and you run up there and test that, and there is a second entry long there, but you don't want to be going long right into that resistance. And that's what happens. These people get long, and then it trades up here, and then all of a sudden it hits that resistance for the 3rd time in a row there, double test, and it runs down and goes right out the other side, and they're trapped long, and they're out in a blink. When you see that happen, when it breaks higher and runs up here, then all of a sudden at the very last minute it runs down and goes out the other side, you're probably trapped, and you're probably going to take a hit. And I would have that would have been a great place. You could have either gone short right there, 1 tick below that, or you could have waited on that one. And it runs down here, and it bounces here, and that's where I drew the trend line. That was the first one. There's actually a smaller blue one in here too. So there's several things going on in here, and several people ask me about that. I don't know which one's right. Well, they're all right. If your price action's fitting in there and it's holding prices like that, it's right. But it's a pattern within the bigger pattern. You have multiple patterns, and now you're going sideways, and this resistance is real here too. So you got to respect it. But notice what happens here. This is where everybody got tripped up. You got a new low right off the trend line, and you get a little 2-legged pattern right there. What does that usually mean? That's usually the center of the pattern. So we're going to get another leg up probably just like that one. And that puts us right up in here. So this one wasn't there, and this one went past it. So you'd be looking for something here, and I can see why a lot of people got tripped up here, because that's a first entry, and then there's a second entry short right there. And that is off the resistance. That's a pretty good bearish bar. So I can see why people would get tripped up, but hopefully if you saw the trend line working up here, either one of these, you definitely should have had the blue one. You may not have had the brown one yet, but this blue one's already been confirmed. You got to be careful because you're getting pinched into here, and one of these is going to win out, but you don't know which one. And this trend line might be the one that wins out, and so it could go all the way up to here. That's what it ends up doing, but it just took a little while to get through that resistance. There's just strong resistance there. So if you don't know for sure what's going on, of course, there is room to get back there. So if you got tripped up there, that's just a short trap. They trapped a bunch of shorts in, then they trapped them out, and they took it right back where they were going to begin with. And that happens. That's what happens in resistance sometimes. So there's just not much you can do about that. Let me show you another chart. This was my original chart this morning. I reloaded my data when I changed over to the I didn't, after I put ETH in there, somehow I had it off. You can see where I had, and that's what my data looks like. And that was mine actually broke higher and turned down. That was a great setup, and I marked it as a good trade, but it does look a little different than the other one. So when I reloaded my data, that changed, and it looked just like the other chart. So it's frustrating, but that's the way it goes. And there's a great second entry there that worked great on my chart. But if you traded if your chart looked like this, and I know at least a couple of you did, then you probably got burned on that one. And really there's not a whole lot that you could do right there, because that most of the time I tell you that's probably a pretty good entry. There's enough room back to the EMA. It's right at strong resistance, but there's a couple of clues. We'd close lower right here the last time, and this one closes higher, and we actually pushed higher than the last few times. So you just got, sometimes you don't know that this move is over, and it just wasn't quite over, and they got that little double trout, and then they run it right back down. And you can see how swiftly that reversed, and look how big and strong that bar is. That tells you there's a lot of people that got trapped to the long side. So that's what they were trying to do, and they probably hadn't trapped enough people there. But when it broke higher again, a bunch of the people that don't know how to trade ranges jumped in right there long, and a lot of these shorts were exiting, so they were buying, and it ran it up and probably ran a few extra stops. People trying to be a little safer, and their stops got ran, and they're all buying way up here, and then boom, and you can see how fast they all had to run out. And that's what causes that real swift move down there. But we come back down here, we got support, we got the brown trend line possibly, we got the blue trend line for sure, and I like going long right there. So that gives you another chance, and look how it goes. It goes back to about the same distance, so you don't want to be getting short in here. And once the closer it gets here, you don't want to get long on this side. You got to wait till you get something on the other side that holds. And then finally, notice you got a little first entry, second entry. There's a failed second entry short right there that you might take, so when it breaks higher. But I don't like it because it's still inside of this. Of course, it doesn't matter what your signal bar looks like. And that big red bar probably traps some shorts. So because you get a lot of people looking for shorts here that don't see these trend lines working up through here and don't realize what's happening right in this, where we're squeezing in tighter and tighter, and one of these is going to win out. And so you're better off just to probably sit tight right in here. But notice you get one leg up and then a second leg up. There's two measured legs up, and then it pulls back and bounces right there. That's where I would go long. It's a little breakout pullback type entry. And then we run up here, and there's just no entry right here. There's no safe entry. Maybe right there, but that's an inside bar. So there's just not really a safe entry. That would be the only one I'd say maybe. And then it runs on up here, and then now you get a good entry. Pulls back first entry, pulls back second entry, and you get a chance to go long there. This is really you could use either one of these, but that's bullish enough. I mean, it's only like 3 ticks in that bar, I think 3 or 4 ticks. So that's a real safe, low risk entry. Even if you're wrong, you don't lose much, and look at it go. You can't enter up in here, and now you've overshot everything, or at least it appears that way. And here's another one, real small bar. I can't even remember. We hadn't seen small bars like this in forever. And so I'm hesitant to mark these because people will be trying to pick tops and stuff, and they'll start having losers. But there's your first leg up. And there's your second. I mean, that's a perfect measured move. And then look at that little bitty bar way away from the EMA. And you've had a couple of little last second jogs there. I'd probably take that trade all day long just because it's so low risk, and it gives you when you do catch those kind of trades, notice there's 2 legs down, two good legs down. But I hate to mark these in a trend like this because people will start trying to get short all the way up through here and just keep getting losers. But anyway, that's very low risk, and you've already had those couple little fake outs. Notice how you pushed up once, twice, 3 times. That third push a lot of times will be the end of it, but don't tomorrow I'll get 25 emails where people saw 3 pushes to a new high and they went short and lost. So don't do it. Wait till you're experienced. Don't try it because you saw me show you a good. That's what usually happens. People will say, "Oh, that's cool," and the next day they see something that looks like that, but they don't have any idea of the overall context, and they take that trade and it loses, and then they're wondering why this lose. You were showing a trade just like that yesterday, but they'd be trying to do it like here or something, or I don't know. Anyway, just don't try to do it if you're not a very skilled chart trader yet. This is much more advanced. Otherwise, I probably shouldn't even mark. Serena, I didn't mark it the first time, but it's such a great setup. I really wanted to talk about it. So then we're coming down this trend line. Somehow my trend lines have moved here. I don't know what's going on. I'm just going to start it over. This trend line's coming down like so. And you get this overshoot, a break, and that's a first entry short, but there's a trap. It looks like it's going to go lower, and then it goes higher, and then it turns back down. And when this closes like that, and notice too, even though you make a lower low, that's still 2 legs back to the EMA. And somebody asked me about that on another older chart lesson. With the move down that strong, you're going to probably retest this low. And notice that's what it did. It didn't quite make a new low, and then it bounced and took off. But that's still 2 legs back to the EMA, which is usually going to lead to, especially on a trend moving down that much. Of course, we did overshoot, so we could reverse without making a new low, but you would expect that to come back down. Then you got your trend working up, close outside, a couple of moves up, and that kind of takes you into the next day. There is a failed second entry short right there at 2 o'clock. So that's a possibility, but being that late in the day, 2 o'clock, I don't think that's a very good setup being that far away from the EMA. And if you take a loser that late in the day, you're pretty much done. So if you have a loser at 8 or 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, you got plenty of time to make it up. But if you have a loser around 1:30 or 2, you don't have much chance to make it up. And so it's not worth risking. The only way you'd want to take a trade that close to 2 o'clock is if it's a really good setup. So anyway, that's 32 minutes. I'm not going to beat around the bush. That's what I saw today. And hopefully you had a good trading day. And I got my new computer in. Hopefully I'm going to get that up. And I haven't got everything set up on it. I was hoping to do that tonight, but I just didn't have time. I need to get this up. It's almost 8:30 now, so I'm going to stop this and get the video uploaded. And it's going to be late, so some of you may not see it till tomorrow, but I apologize. But anyway, hopefully my new computer will be up and running by tomorrow afternoon, and this will be a much easier process because I'll have a little faster and newer updated machine. But anyway, I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.